ever wonder if the connections you feel with people aren't just emotional, but maybe something more? Something that transcends physical distance.
Hmm.
Imagine understanding a perspective where your consciousness, your actual essence, could have a reach far beyond your body, instantaneously.
Sounds pretty out there, doesn't it? Like science fiction.
It really does. But let's, explore the ideas behind this concept, projecting what one text calls your signature of consciousness across the cosmos.
Exactly. And it might sound like sci-fi, but what we're actually diving into are principles from some quite ancient understandings of energy and consciousness.
Okay.
We'll be looking at a really fascinating framework. It weaves together this idea of a law of halves, the vital energy known as chi, and something called psychic aikido.
Psychic Aikido. Interesting.
Yeah, all to understand this potential for, non-local presence.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission in this deep dive is really to pull out the core insights for you, the listener, from this framework. It's intriguing stuff. We want to grasp the mechanics, the how, maybe, and the thinking behind this idea of extending consciousness. But, without getting totally lost in jargon.
Right. Keep it accessible.
Think of this as your fast track to understanding some pretty expansive concepts. So we'll focus on three key things from our source: this law of halves, the role of chi, and this psychic aikido idea. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's start with the law of halves. Now, it's really important to get that this isn't simple arithmetic, not just dividing by two.
Okay.
Instead, maybe picture it as a principle of energetic refinement. You refine through reduction.
So reducing something makes it more potent. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but think about it in a spiritual or psychic context.
Yeah.
The source text gives examples like having thought.
Having thought, what does that mean?
It means stripping away the unnecessary mental chatter to get to the core idea. The signal becomes clearer.
Okay, makes sense, like filtering noise.
Exactly. Or having the ego, which is said to reveal your true essence. Even having physical motion, which supposedly increases your internal power, your internal focus.
Right, so it's not like cutting a cake in half where you just have less cake. It's more like distilling something, refining it down to its most potent part.
That's a great analogy, distilling it down. Each of these halvings is described as a move inward, towards what the text calls core resonance.
Core resonance.
Yeah, think of it like the fundamental note of a musical instrument. You strip away all the overtones, the extras, and you're left with its purest single vibration. And the idea is, as you get closer to this irreducible core of yourself, your ability to transmit that essence becomes clearer, more stable, and remarkably immediate.
Immediate. Not faster, but immediate.
Sort of. It's not about increasing the volume. It's about finding the precise frequency, getting it really pure.
Which then leads into this non-locality idea you mentioned. The text even brings up quantum entanglement, which is, mind-bending stuff.
It is. The idea that two particles can be linked, instantly connected no matter how far apart they are.
Right.
And this framework suggests that maybe, at this essential vibrational level, separation itself is, maybe it's an illusion.
So the signal doesn't need to travel in the usual sense.
Exactly.
Right.
Not if the underlying frequency is already sort of in sync elsewhere. It's more like sympathetic vibration.
Like tuning forks. You strike one and the other one vibrates if it's the same frequency.
Precisely that. Which brings us really neatly to the second principle, chi.
Yeah, chi. Life force energy.
Yes, but the text defines it quite specifically as coded vitality. It's universal, everywhere, but it gets uniquely shaped by our own personal energy field.
Coded vitality, so it carries information. Like we each have our own energetic fingerprint within this universal chi.
That's a really good way to put it. A unique chi signature, and it carries, everything about us. Our emotions, mental states. The text even suggests soul-level frequencies.
Wow. So we're like energetic broadcasters, constantly sending out a signal whether we know it or not.
In a way, yes. And the text contrasts different states of chi. You have undisciplined chi, which is scattered, weak, like bad radio reception.
Okay.
Then there's over-controlled chi, which becomes stagnant, blocked, like a dammed-up river.
Right, loses its flow.
But then there's chi that's aligned with your core essence, that refined signal we talked about with the law of halves. That's when it can act as an effective broadcast.
And how does it move? Or, broadcast?
Through intention.
Yeah.
And the shapes we create with our awareness is not just passive energy.
Okay, so our focus, our intention directs it. How do you actually do that, according to this?
Well, it's laid out as a kind of two-step process. First, you purify your internal field. Use that law of halves idea to clear out the static, the noise.
Get the signal clean.
Right. And then step two, you cultivate and concentrate your chi. Build it up, make it coherent, like a focused waveform.
A coherent waveform carrying your essence, and then what? You just push it out.
See, that's the interesting part. It's not about pushing it out like throwing something. The text says it's directed psychically.
Psychically?
Yeah, into the universal field.
Yeah.
Through things like intuition or empathy or even using symbols. It's much more subtle than a physical push. More like sending out a feeling, maybe.
Or an intention.
Exactly, an intention carried on, that coherent chi.
And this comes back to it not needing to travel. Because it's resonance.
Precisely. If your trained chi carries your fundamental resonance, it doesn't move through space point to point. It just resonates. The text actually says it's faster than thought beyond space.
Wow. That's a pretty profound idea to wrap your head around.
It is, and it sets us up perfectly for the third principle, psychic aikido.
Okay, psychic aikido. I know aikido, the martial art, is about blending with force, not meeting it head on.
Exactly that philosophy.
Yeah.
So psychic aikido here is presented as the art of energetic redirection, harmonic attunement, flowing with energy, not against it.
So instead of forcefully projecting your energy, you learn to align with the currents that are already there.
You got it. And the text gives three sort of vital truths for this, especially for cosmic transmission. The first one is, do not push, you merge.
Don't push, merge. Why?
Because pushing, using force, is seen as slow. It creates resistance, friction, but merging with the field's natural flows, that's faster, almost undetectable.
Like a drop of water joining a stream.
Perfect analogy. You match the rhythm and you sort of appear through resonance rather than arriving through force.
Okay, that makes sense energetically. What's the second truth?
The second one builds on this. You do not project, you echo.
Don't project, echo. What's the difference there?
Well, projection implies sending something out, a definite movement from A to B. Echoing is more like simultaneous resonance.
Duh.
Your refined T signature acts like a subtle ping, and wherever that specific signature is recognized in the wider field, it just activates. Resonance happens there.
So your presence is heard rather than sent.
Kind of, yeah. Like striking a specific piano key, only the string tuned to that exact note vibrates in response. It's selective.
That's a really clear distinction. And the third truth?
The third is, you do not control. You align. This is about letting go of the illusion that you need to forcefully control the outcome.
Which is hard for a lot of people.
Very hard.
Yeah.
But the idea is to focus instead on aligning with truth, with the fundamental nature of things. The principle is that an energy field that's stripped of your personal distortions, your ego stuff, it will naturally find its match elsewhere.
So you trust the interconnectedness, trust the alignment itself.
Precisely. Work with the structure of reality. Don't try to bend it to your will. Which brings us to how you might actually practice this. The text calls it the practice of transmission.
Okay, the practical steps. How does one even begin?
It breaks it down into 4 steps. Step 1 is refine your signature.
Which sounds like that law of halves stuff again. Deep introspection, meditation.
Exactly. Stillness. Identifying your core essence, peeling back layers of unnecessary thoughts, desires, even language, until you get to that irreducible harmonic we mentioned.
The pure note.
The pure note. Step 2 is build chi coherence.
Okay, generating the energy now.
Yeah, using breath work, maybe specific movements, or just intense focus to create a stable, coherent flow of chi in your body. Centering it in key energy points the dantian below the nodeful, the heart, the crown.
And infusing it with that refined signature.
Crucially, yes, but infused through being it, through embodying it, not just thinking about it. It has to be deeply felt.
Right. Step 3.
Step 3, engage the grid.
Yeah.
This is about extending your awareness out beyond your physical self.
Feeling into the surrounding energy field.
Yes. Sensing its patterns, its flows, maybe nodes of connection. Identifying where your particular resonance might be needed or recognized. Becoming aware of the broader psychic landscape.
Like tuning a receiver.
Good one. And finally, step 4. Merge and echo.
Putting it all together.
Right, but gently. The text really stresses this. You're not forcefully injecting anything. You subtly place your refined signature into the chi field around you.
And let it ripple out.
Exactly. You allow it to ripple, leaning into the field's rhythm, using those psychic Aikido principles, yielding, merging, allowing the signal to just instantly resonate where there's a match.
It's fascinating how the text insists this isn't just a metaphor.
No, it mentions anecdotal accounts. Practitioners experiencing their presence being recognized remotely.
How? Like, what kind of experiences?
Things like someone having a sudden insight that feels like it came from the practitioner, or a vivid dream, unexpected synchronicities, things that suggest a connection happened.
And it all comes back to bypassing physical distance, being faster than light because it's resonance, not travel.
That's the core claim, which naturally leads us straight into the ethics of this.
Ah, yes, the responsibility aspect. If this is even remotely possible.
Exactly. The source material calls it the ethical anchor. It stresses the huge responsibility that would come with such an ability.
Makes sense.
The intention has to be about harmony, connection. Never, ever about trying to dominate or seduce or control someone. The text suggests the field itself kind of rejects distortion anyway,
It pushes back.
or just doesn't resonate. And that principle of non-violation from psychic Aikido is key. You don't plant energy where it's uninvited. You don't manipulate for ego.
It sounds like it requires real purity of intent.
Absolutely. It underscores the subtlety, almost the sacredness of this kind of practice. Effectiveness isn't measured in big, flashy displays, but in quiet, internal shifts. Silent transformation.
Aligning with a deeper order, not imposing your own.
That sums it up beautifully.
So, just to recap the core ideas we've explored, we had the law of halves intensifying your essence by reducing the noise, essentially.
Right, getting to that core resonance.
Then qi, the vital energy, acting as the carrier wave for your unique aligned signature.
A coded vitality, yeah.
And psychic aikido, the art of arriving through yielding, merging, and echoing rather than pushing or controlling.
Harmonizing with the field.
So the main takeaway for you, the listener, is this potential. This idea that you could cultivate yourself into a kind of psychic signal.
Yeah, a coherent, resonant presence capable of connection across distance, beyond the usual limits of space and time.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? About those gut feelings, those moments of deep empathy for someone far away, or even vivid dreams that feel so real and connected.
Maybe these principles are already subtly at play, in ways we don't fully grasp yet.
Could be. The source does frame it as a rising discipline of subtle mastery, something relevant for our times.
It does feel relevant with our world being so interconnected electronically, yet maybe disconnected in other ways.
Definitely food for thought. So, here's something to maybe ponder as you go about your day. If our deepest sense of self or consciousness isn't actually confined by our physical bodies, what new possibilities might that unlock?
Yeah. What kinds of connection, what understanding, what ways of being become possible then?
It's certainly a fascinating realm to consider.